Hi, I'm Gary Cole and you're listening to The Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media, the podcast professionals. This podcast is about the stories of the men and women who we give the responsibility of coaching our players and our teams here in Australia. There's some wonderful stories, some wonderful wisdom, some great learnings. Today we're honoured to have the brand new head coach of West Sydney Wanderers, Kath Cannuli's W League team. That's probably what it is. That's not the best introduction, but we'll do. Kath, welcome along. Great to have you.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here and speaking with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Kath, you've got a I'm going to call you a baby. I don't wish to be disrespectful there, but at 35 with a couple of old dinosaurs on this podcast, in coach years, if we cut you in half, the coaching rings are still pretty small. But in those 35 years, you've had a great playing experience that took you through playing as a youngster at Marconi, into the young Matildas, 55 games in the Women's Soccer League, championships, premierships, and then into coaching. And this isn't about your playing career; it's about your coaching career. But tell us a little bit about you as a young player and how all that started for you out at Marconi.
Yeah, well, look, I grew up in a football mad Italian household, so I think I had no choice but to want to play football. I remember the early mornings I'd get up with my family to watch Italy play, and a lot of happiness and a lot of tears there as well as a football fan. I just knew that I always wanted to play football. There's a few roadblocks there with mum saying that I shouldn't be playing and don't worry about football. And then one day, Dad and I snuck out of the house and went down and just started training with the boys at Marconi, and then within the following year, I was in the team. I was one of the first ever girls to play in the boys competition at that level. And I played there for 3 years until I was 13. And then I got told that I was not allowed to play with the boys anymore. And back then there was no pathways for girls. It was pretty much go straight at 13 into the first grade women's squad at Marconi. And it was just from there that my career sort of pushed on. I was kicking a ball at one of my brother's games at halftime, and I think it was Tony Walmsley back then that identified me, just kicking a ball. And my passion for football has always been there since a young age, and I just always knew that football was something that I wanted to do. And I think people that I see along the way now, friends of my brothers or friends of the family, they said, we always knew that you would have to do something with football because you always had that bloody ball at your feet.
And did that, in so many times, obviously you and your dad used to sneak out. Was that, so it wasn't a backyard thing, or was it a backyard thing? Were you always kicking the ball around at home?
Yeah. So if anyone, like family, friends or cousins, everything always revolved around the football. Whether we went to the beach or any family gatherings, you were always kicking a ball in the backyard or in the house or wherever we could find. Football is part of life in the Italian culture. Growing up, my brothers played, my dad played. It was part of our everyday life. We would go and watch all my brothers' games. We would go to Marconi games. If you look back at some of the old NSL players from Marconi days where, I still see today. And it's funny because they used to see me always sneaking into the change rooms, and I'd always want to go into the change. They can't come in, Catherine. They can't let little girls in there. And every now and then somebody would sneak me in, whether it be Francis Awaratifi or Vlado Zoric or JP or Andy Harper. One of the boys would grab me and take me in or take me onto the field. And I would always be there post-dinner, after the game. And like there's just so many great memories growing up as a youngster, hanging around at Marconi, whether it was before or after training. But football's always just been a big part of my life and a huge part of my family's life.
Yeah. Kath, how do you obviously you're coaching the W League team at West Sydney Wanderers, but you spent time as a TD in Southern Districts. You're working with some academy kids as well. How are modern coaches dealing with kids that don't kick the ball around every day at home? Do you think that's impacting the way they come to you as players in terms of their preparedness?
Yeah, I think it's huge. If we look at how many games our Aussie kids play in comparison to kids, whether it be in America or Europe or Japan, we always know about, you got to be touching the ball X amount of times, to be sort of, a top level player, and games and decision making is a big part of it as well. With my, philosophy at SD Raiders and where I'm a TD at, it's all about how many extra games can we get in for the kids within the year. Not calling training sessions off, finding alternate training sessions when it's raining and the councils close the grounds. Can you get them into futsal courts? Can you get them into synthetic fields? And we're always going above and beyond. That's a big part of me being the TD there and making sure that the girls do not miss a training session. Because you got a week or 2 weeks of rain. What do? You have to make alternative arrangements for them to make sure that they're training and they're playing. That's a big thing here in Australia. But I'm a big believer of, before any of that, you have to have passion for the game. You have to love the game. I think football is one of the only games in the world that you can't play if you don't love it. I just always feel like, you need to have that special bond, with the game and the way you play it. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to instill in a lot of the girls in the younger ages, to watch more football, to get involved and see what the culture's about and get out and about. It's not just turning up to training, turning up to the game, and that's it. There's just so much more to becoming a footballer.
Kath, in your I think you've been with Southern Districts and West Sydney Wanderers since you're around about 30 now. So that's 5 years. 30 is really sort of young. When I saw that as a technical director, I went, "Wow, that's a big gig. 30 years." And again, I'm going to keep referring myself to a dinosaur here, and that's only because I've been on the planet for a few years. But in the early days of being a technical director, that meant you're responsible for the player development pathway and the coaching development pathway. Is that something that was a part or is part of that role at Southern Districts?
Yeah, it is. I didn't always start off there as a TD. To be honest, my first year, which was about 7 years ago, I just went in there after I stopped playing, and I was just holding training sessions for all their teams. So I'd go and spend some time with the 13s, the 14s, and I'd just do a little bit of sessions, just individual stuff with different teams, just to help the association out. And it was just post-playing career to sort of keep involved. And it was the following year after that I went to the association board and I presented a plan to them about women's football, and said, I'm really passionate about our region, and if I'm going to be involved in football and in coaching, I would love to do it here at our association where I've grown up and where it's been a big part of my life. And I showed them a plan of what I wanted to do with the club and the association over a 10-year sort of period. And they bought into it. They loved what I had to say. I started off there just as the first grade coach in the beginning. So I coached first grade for the first year. The second year I said, well, if I'm going to coach first grade, I need to coach the 14s because I need to start. I'm not going to get the quality that I want in terms of what I wanted out of a player. So the second year I just started coaching the 14s and the first grade. So I'd do one end to the other. And then it was in the third year that I turned around and said, okay, well, this is the next part of the plan, which, I want it to become a full-time role for myself. I want to be involved full-time with the association and the NPL club. And this is what I have in plan for what I want to do here. And this is my reasoning behind it. And I said, well, I can't work full-time and do what I want to do. And again, and I'm very, very fortunate to have an association that has been a big believer in what I want to do as a coach and as a TD, but also a big believer and a big supporter in women's football in Southwest Sydney region. And I'm one of the fortunate ones, and I say this all the time, I'm very, very lucky to have people like Southern Districts Association that support me and support my career and what I want to do and how I want to grow things. because I am one of the lucky ones that's involved and employed full time.
Yeah, and that firstly, to be employed full time in football in Australia, whether you're a male or a female, is a big deal, because there's still not an awful lot of those jobs around. Even less jobs full time in the game for women. So it's absolutely fantastic. And just listening to you talk about that, because I think you played in Southern Districts as well at the start of the process. You went in to coach TD. You coached the senior women's team to a couple of championships, and you're coaching the kids as well. That's one heck of a fast track learning experience for a young coach, isn't it?
It is. It was huge. And honestly, after probably my second year in coaching, I think I called majority of my coaches that coached me and said, I'm so sorry for what I put you through. Because I'll tell you what, being a player is so much easier turning up the training with your boot bag and leaving, because as a coach, the amount of hours and time and commitment that you have to put in is just unbelievable. And my hat goes off to every single coach that's coaching out there across Australia, because, you know, a lot of them do it because they love it. And a lot of them do 3 or 4 different jobs to be involved in football in a full-time capacity.
Yeah.
And there's a massive sacrifice in there to be part of the coaching world. And like I said, as a player, it's the same. You have to have passion and love for the sport. And as a coach, you have to have 10 times more passion and love for the sport as well. But in the beginning, you know, playing and coaching, I thought it was going to be easy, but it wasn't. It was really, really hard trying to do both. And that's why in the end, I ended up just hanging up the boots and concentrating more on the coaching side.
Fair to say, when you first get into coaching, you don't know what you don't know.
Oh, 100%. You know, it's just such a massive eye opener. And over the years, you know, I've been really, really fortunate to have a lot of people that, you know, I've been able to lean on, people that I can just pick up the phone and call. You know, these are the top end coaches like, you know, Alan Stajic, Tom Samani, to be able to pick up the phone and call these guys and just have a chat about coaching and, you know, any questions that I sort of had along the way. It's just so great to be able to lean on them. And I know that I'm one of the lucky ones, because there's a lot of up and coming coaches and there's a lot of people that are passionate about coaching, but they don't have the network and don't have those sort of relationships that I've made over the years, obviously as a player, which helps along the way.
Yeah. I want to drill down into that a little bit further, a little bit later on. How did you get into coaching? What was the motivation? How did it all start for you?
I think in the beginning, I had a year off playing and I just finished up with the Wanderers, and I decided to sort of hang my boots up and just concentrate on work and building my family life and building myself a career outside of football. And to be honest, I was just bored and I wanted to be involved in the game in some way, you know, having that time off. And I'm not used to being at home, you know, during the week. You know, there's only so much TV that you can watch, and there was actually no Netflix back then when I stopped playing. But I just love being on the park. I felt like I could give back to kids. You know, and it started off just wanting to give back to Southern Districts and, you know, kids from Liverpool and Fairfield region. You know, give back something that I didn't have. I never had a role model or a mentor or somebody that I could sort of look up to and say, oh wow, like this girl played for Australia, or wow, this girl plays for the W League. You know, I still go out to many clubs across the Southern Districts Association, and it's still, you know, it hurts me to see that not every girl puts their hand up when I say, do you know who the Matildas are? Do you know what the W League is, what the Westwoods W League is? And there's still not every girl in the crowd puts their hands up, and that's my goal. My goal is to get out to clubs and, you know, see young girls. When you say, do you know who the Matildas are, that every girl on the field puts their hands up and says yes.
Yeah, I love that. How now that you've just been appointed into that first senior W League performance role, in looking back, and I know it's not a long way to look back, but how important do you think getting that first gig in a Southern Districts has been for you in preparing you for where you find yourself now?
Oh, it's massive because I didn't just walk into a professional environment. I walked in at basically grassroots. We built what we've done at Southern Districts in the women's program. Myself and my team around me have built that from scratch. The team was in a state league competition, and there was no professionalism to the program. We have built that now, and we're in an MPL2 program. We're an established program. We have qualified coaches. A lot of things that I've implemented there in terms of, mentoring players that are currently playing, female players that have decided to step away from the game, which we've also got into coaching. One of our coaches that came through our program, which is now working within the Future Matildas and the Young Matildas space, which that to me is fantastic. That's what I want to. That's what I want to see. I want to inspire, young females to know that there is opportunities for them, that they can grow, whether it be as a player, whether it be as a coach, whether it be as an administrator, whatever they want to do in football, that those opportunities are there. And, I will help them in any way that I can.
Yeah, I like that. Kath, then, because of that experience, you're a West Sydney Wanderers girl. You played there. You've been in the program since it kicked off. John Satsimus picks up the phone. I assume it was John, and says, "Kath, have we got a job for you?" Do you just jump in willy-nilly there, or what are the processes that you went through before you said to John, "Yeah, John, I'm going to do this. Where's the contract? Press hard, 3 copies."
Yeah, look, myself and JT have had a fantastic relationship for many years. Started back 10 years ago when we first started the club. And he knows as well as myself that at the end of the day, especially now, I'm not just a lone ranger. I've got a family. I've got a young child that I have to worry about as well. And it's difficult in terms of, the W League job is still a part-time role, and something that is difficult for someone like myself. But I'm very lucky that I've got the support of the club, from the Wanderers and JT, and I've also got the support from the Southern Districts Association, where they've both come together and made this work for me, which I'm very, very lucky because, it's over the years, the relationships that I've built from both sides, and, both clubs, so Wanderers and the association, both mean so much to me. And it's not just a job, it's something that I'm passionate about on both ends. Both clubs mean the world to me, and I don't want to be anywhere else. That's where I want to be. And being the head coach at the Wanderers in the W League space is the pinnacle for me. It's a club that, I feel very passionate about, and I'm very honoured to take this role, and I hope it's something that, we can continue to grow. And it's not a short-term project here. It's something long-term that we want to build. And I think I can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. How on earth are you going to get some downtime to refresh, renew your batteries, see your family now and again with these 2 large part-time roles that make one incredibly large full-time role?
Yeah, look, that was one of the only things that was said when I was talking about the role with my partner. It's just about making sure that I make time, not only for myself, I think, and for my son as well, because it's really, really important. I always say this to the players, is to have that balance. I think it's important that, you have that time out, whether it be a player or a coach, to make sure that you clear your head and you clear your mind, and you're always focusing with a clear picture. You sort of don't want to be, 100 miles an hour in what you're doing. But like I said in the beginning, is that I've got the support from the association and the club to make sure that my time will be managed correctly, and that I'm not overworked and over doing overly like a lot of hours within the W League season. I'll reduce my hours at the association to make sure that my hours within the W League space are sufficient. And on the other end, when W League season's off, then my hours will increase with the association. So we've all come together, and we've agreed on this and to make it work for myself, because I understand how important football is, but also how important my family life and my son are to me, and that's something that we're just going to have to make work. I'm sure I'll be bringing him down to the field. That's for sure.
I'm sure you will. Coaching backpack.
That's it.
Kath, on your journey as a player, or maybe in the early days of being coaches, was there a coach or coaches that had the most influence on you?
Yeah, look, probably Alan Stajic, I've got to say, has been one of the most influential. I can see now why he did what he did when he was coaching us. Because as a player, you don't see that. You just think that they're picking on you all the time, or that they're just being tough on you. But you don't realise that the ones that pick on you and the ones that are being tough on you are the ones that expect for you to be better and want you to be better and just trying to push and challenge you all the time. I see that now being on the other side. But it's just, I think one of the main things that I take away from him is the passion, the passion that he brings to the game, the commitment, that willingness to win all the time, and instilling that in his players. That's something that now I look back on. I think now I understand why a lot of those things were implemented, or why we did what we did. As a player, you don't realise that, and everyone always say the biggest whingers are always the players. We're the most selfish people. But yeah, as a coach, now looking from the other side and looking back, I think that's a really, really important trait to have. Just be passionate and instilling that willingness to win.
Oh, I like that. You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media the Podcast Professionals. We're talking today with Kath Cannuli, the new head coach of the W League team at West Sydney Wanderers. Pushing ahead, Kath, so what is coaching?
Oh, what isn't coaching? Coaching, you think it's just turning up and putting a session on. I think when you're a coach, you're a psychologist, you're a doctor, you're a mother, you're a nutritionist, you're an analyst, you're everything, But coaching is something that you need to feel that love. You need to have that passion when it comes down to coaching, because you have to wear so many different hats. It's not just putting a training session on or just drawing it up on the computer. You need to have so many different skills to be a coach. Being able to interact with your players, being able to manage, a big group of people, organisation, having so many different skill sets across the football world, not just, putting a training session together, understanding how to, code games, analyze. There's just so many different parts that you need to know, and it's a really, really tough gig, and you don't realise it until you're actually in it full time.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, it's been a big day for Australian coaches, or a big week, a couple of weeks. You appointed head coach at West Sydney Wanderers. This week we've had Joe Montemuro appointed as head coach of the Juventus women's team, which I'm sure rings some bells for you. And overnight, Ange Postecoglou finally appointed as manager at Celtic, which is, you sort of sit and shake your head and you go, wow, it's just remarkable. Does that help you as a young coach dream bigger dreams, or is it just make it seem a long way away? How does all that sort of stuff make you feel?
No, it's unbelievable. It's amazing for Australian football. We don't get enough recognition as coaches in Australia. You go to Europe, they don't look at us, in a way that they would look at their European counterparts. But to see Joe go to Juventus, that's my childhood club. Juventus is a club that I've followed my whole life, and to know that that's possible for an Australian coach, and to see someone in a full-time role doing that, it's just unbelievable. Joe went and done all his badges at Coverciano, which is the home base for the Italian national team. something that I've always dreamed of, to go there and do some of my licenses. But it's a really, really tough ask to get over to Europe and to pay to do all those courses and be away from Australia. But it's just so amazing to see Joe, and also see Ange now at a massive club like Celtic. And I hope it gives Australian coaches the inspiration to not give up and to continue on their path, because who knows what doors can open up for us now. Just to know that the Australian coaches are on the map in Europe is massive, and hopefully, they both have the success in those clubs, and which will help us eventually if we ever want to go and apply for any of these jobs overseas. Because I've got a good friend that's working over in Europe at the moment, and they said we actually underestimate how good we are as Australian coaches. People think just because they're in Europe, there's good coaches everywhere, but there's actually a lot of really, really good coaches in Australia. It's just about, for us now, finding opportunities on how we can keep these coaches coaching in Australia full time, because that's the biggest problem that we're facing right now. They're the biggest barriers, is how do we get our good coaches to be in full-time work, across Australia? Because unfortunately, long term, we need to think about, our family life, our careers, and we're not going to be able to keep people in the game for too long if we don't start offering full-time opportunities for these people. We're going to lose these good people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that part of that comes back to the length of the season, doesn't it? We talk about players needing games to develop, and that's no different for coaches. We learn as coaches when our teams don't do so well. We learn from, like everyone, from making mistakes. But a coach that's coaching 11 games a season in the National Youth League, or 20 games a season, in the W League, or 70 games a season in the European League, there's a different level of learning speed, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to know the stats of how many full-time jobs are available in Australia compared to how many coaches we actually have.
Yeah.
We've always said, better coaches, better footballers.
Yeah.
I can't remember, was it Iceland that put their money into coaching, and they done a big coach overhaul? I think it was Iceland.
Yeah, they got it in through their school system. So
Yeah.
they spend a lot investing in school teachers to coach.
Yeah.
Obviously a very, very small nation that's had incredible success. Yeah.
It's just fantastic. And I think that's something that we need to do. We need to be investing in our coach education. We need to be investing in coach development. We need to be investing in coaching pathways, mentorships, offering these coaches the opportunity, because there are plenty of males and females out there that want to work in football. There's only a handful of us that are lucky enough to actually do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Kath, you mentioned about Joe going to the home of coaching in Italy for his badges, and he and I had a discussion around about that. That's something you said you'd like to do. Is that because of the cultural thing, or do you think UEFA and Italian coaches, their coach education system is different from the Australian coach education system?
Yeah, it's just, culturally, obviously, growing up in an Italian household, and my background's Italian, and Coverciano is something that, we've always spoken about. But I would love to just see what it's like going through there and seeing, what the Italian way of coaching is. And obviously I've grown up watching a lot of Italian football, and it's completely different. The UEFA badges of coaches that I have spoken to, and who I've spoken to, obviously with us going through our AFC licenses, it's a completely different pathway and a completely different course.
Yeah. Joe's words were that in Italy they spent more time looking at what to coach, and he thought in Australia we spent maybe too much time looking at how to coach. And the difference was, in Europe, we don't really care how you get your message across, because everyone's different and there could be a different way of delivering the message. But these are the important things that are happening in football right now. So this is the knowledge to know. How you do that, that's up to you.
Yeah, 100%. We always say, you get a driver's license, but everyone drives differently. You got good drivers, bad drivers. Some use their blinkers, some don't. But at the end of the day, you got to do what is you. So you've got to be you. And even from all the coaches that I've looked at over the years, and I've crossed paths with a lot of different coaches and a lot of great coaches, especially moving in and out of Western Sydney Wanderers and being able to interact with our A-League coaches as well. But it's amazing, you take a little bit from everyone, and then you've got to never change who you are as a person and adapt your principles to the way you want to deliver those, but coaching, there's a handbook, and you've got to get your coaching licenses, and you've got to, follow a process. But when you actually get the head coaching job, it's up to you how you make it work. Alex Ferguson is probably different to a Jose Mourinho, and they've all got their different ways on how they deliver their messages. And it's what works for you as a head coach. Those licenses are great. I think across the whole world, it'd be fantastic to touch on all different courses just to see how all different countries do it. But in the end of the day, you have to have your own style and your own spin on the way you do things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's come out in having these conversations is, in my opinion at least, I think it's time for FIFA to look at coach education worldwide, and that a pro license in Asia shouldn't be any different from a pro license in Italy or South America. It should be a standard that's set around the world and enable, because it's a costly business to go and do a pro license. Well, it's a costly business to do your licenses, full stop. So to think that you get one in one country that isn't recognised somewhere else is not great.
That's 100%. We need unity. Yeah. It's really sad to see, some of these barriers that a lot of our coaches have been facing since going over to Europe as well. Having to get exemptions, and they're fighting. They've got a pro license in Australia and they can't coach in Europe. That's ridiculous. These guys are full-time pros that have invested in their career and in their pathway, and then they get offered an opportunity to go to Europe, and they have to fight to try and coach in Europe. It's ridiculous, and it's definitely something that FIFA needs to look at, and they need to start doing more in terms of investing back into our sport worldwide.
Yeah. Changing tack a little bit, Kath, I keep calling you a young coach, and you're at 35, albeit you've had plenty of experience now. Have you found your coaching's changed over your journey so far?
Yeah, I think it has. I've evolved as a coach, from when I first started. Obviously, you keep learning and you keep adding to your toolbox, just like a player. As a player, you had tools to your toolbox, and as a coach, you had tools to your toolbox. And as a person, I've grown and matured, and my coaching style has evolved and has changed, but not that much in terms of what I expect and my standards as a coach. They're the same. Whether I'm coaching my under 14s girls or whether I'm coaching my W League girls, my standards are always the same in what I expect from the players. I don't give them less than 150% every day going into a training session, and I don't expect any less from them when they take the field as well. There's certain things that for me are non-negotiable, and giving everything once you cross that white line is one of them.
Good on you. Have you had a coaching mentor? You mentioned the influence that Stages had on you thus far. Do you formally have a coaching mentor or mentors, people that you go to bounce ideas off?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say an official mentor. But like I said previously, it's I'm very lucky that I can pick up the phone, and someone that I'm very close with, and we speak regularly is Alan Stajic. He coached me. We actually done some coaching together. When he was in the Matildas, I actually coached his daughter, so we used to spend a lot of time together back at SD Raiders. And also I was offered the chance to do some professional development stuff when he was in the Matildas, to go and spend time, out of my own time, to go down there and whenever they were in camp in Sydney, and to spend time with the girls on the park, which was amazing for my professional development. Being with Alan and Noel Arate as well, which is his assistant at Central Coast Mariners. I spent some time with him as well, and being able to pick up the phone and talk to these sort of people, and being able to ask questions, or if I'm at a roadblock and I've got something that I want to run by any of them, it's never been anything that they won't pick up the phone. They've always been there for me. Tom Samani also been at the Wanderers, and talking to any of the A-League coaches there. I've always had a great relationship with all of our staff, and being able to pick their brains, it's always great, and especially now within our new facilities at the Wanderers, our new headquarters, the football department's all there. You look over, you got Ian Crook, you got the whole A-League department, the NYL coaches, and it's just great. You got so many whiteboards everywhere, and you pick up the little men and you start moving them around. You start getting football discussions, and that's how you grow, and that's how we all grow. And I think football discussions and being able to have those discussions with 6 or 7 people within the office, and everyone sort of jumps in on the chat, I think is fantastic. And I think as a football club and building a culture, that's what you need. You need to have a great team around you, and I think there at the moment we've got a great team.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's a fantastic opportunity. I look back, and for me, I think it seemed to get lost a little bit. A while ago, coaches could get together and have good, honest discussions about their thoughts, views, and opinions on the game, and it wasn't about me being right and you being wrong, or you being right and me being wrong. It was about our thoughts about the way the game should be played with this group of players at this time, and whether we were right or wrong sort of evolved into how successful we could transform that into the work we did with our players. Yeah,
I think having those discussions and being able to bounce ideas off other passionate people like yourself, I think that's how we grow. That's how we grow as people. That's how we grow as coaches. And I've always been someone that's always been very inviting, with open arms to any other coach that's ever wanted help from me, anyone that I can help assist. And I've actually always had very good relationships with everybody in football, whether it be at the Wanderers or outside of our club environment, because I truly, truly believe that everything that you hear is a learning curve, whether you take it for the good or the bad. I think for you to grow as a person and as a coach, you've always got to take on that advice, whether it be someone within football, whether it be somebody that's successful in business, whether it's, I've got a great mentor in a good friend that, has a beautiful family, beautiful kids. I love the way that they bring up their kids and the way their values are within their household. They're things that resonate with me and something that I want within my household, whether it's, in my house here at home or whether it's in my house at football. Having those values and those core values are very big for me.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. How about outside of football, Kath? Have there been any learnings from other coaches from outside of our game?
Yeah, look, I think I watch a fair bit of football. I see a lot of what goes on in other countries. We've been involved in a lot of different podcasts and chats within, other coaches around the world. It's actually, sometimes we think that we're in a hard situation here in Australia, but sometimes, we've actually got it a lot better than what some others have got it, which is we're very, very fortunate in some ways. We live in a great country, and we have some great opportunities, but it's really good to actually connect with coaches in other countries as well, and just see what their barriers are, what goes well for them, what doesn't. But having that network recently, whether it be through Football Coaches Australia or other people, especially during COVID, I felt that we've done a lot more connecting with people around the world within our game. And I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree that there's plenty of opportunity out there for us to learn if we prepare to be open and let it in. Why do you do it? Why do you coach?
Oh, I think the main one is passion. You know, I love the game. I love football. You know, a lot of my friends don't understand it. They just can't understand why I'm always at football on the weekends, or always at football. Every time they ask me to go and do something, it's always like, I'm at football. So it's funny now, like on our WhatsApp groups, it's always like, yes, okay, coach, no problem, coach. So my whole social life revolves around me being involved in football, you know. So, but like I said, as a player or as a coach, you got to be passionate about what you do. You know, I love coaching. I love instilling, you know, my values, you know, within the female space, and, you know, giving back to these young girls, and also giving people an inspiration, not only now as a footballer, but as a coach, you know, breaking down barriers for the next young female coach to say, you know, one day I want to coach the Wanderers. You know, it might not be the player pathway, but now with myself becoming the head coach of the Western Sydney Wanderers, now that gives this inspiration to other young girls from Western Sydney to say, I can do that.
I like that. You, with the young Matildas, went to a World Cup, and then you took a break for a while. You talked about passion and loving the game. Did you fall out of love with the game for a little while?
Yeah, I did. And I think probably Tom Samani and Alistair Edwards, who's now the TD at Johor, still reminds me to this day that I didn't go to the Youth World Cup in Russia, and I dogged him, he says, all the time. But you're 100% right. I fell out of love with the game, you know, and it was tough, you know, back in those days. You know, we didn't have the opportunities that we have now, and I felt that, you know, that life balance, you know, with football. I think in my younger years, I had sort of blinkers on, and all I wanted to be was a professional footballer, and I wanted to do football full time, and I didn't want to go and work in a normal job. I wanted to be a footballer. And I think as I got older and I realised that that wasn't an opportunity for me, there was nothing there, you know. It sort of disheartened me. And, you know, before the World Cup, the Youth World Cup, which would have been my third Youth World Cup at the time, in Russia, I just pulled the pin and I said, I don't want to play anymore. And I think everybody was just stunned. They're like, what do you mean you don't want to play? I said, I don't want to play anymore. And I think I had a lot of people coming to the door and trying to get me to play. And as anyone would ever say, I can be quite stubborn at times. I think it's the Italian blood in me. But that's why I always say the main ingredient as a player and as a coach is that you need to love the game and you need to be passionate about it. And when I fell out of love with the game and I didn't have that, you know, that feeling when I took the training pitch or when I took the pitch in a game, and when you lose that spark and that feeling, I felt it was time for me to take a break. And I didn't think that I'd ever go back. And I was lucky enough, you know, a few years later, the W League came ahead, and again, it was Alan Stajic actually that said, "What are you doing playing in those paddocks with those park soccer girls? Are you serious?" He goes, "You need to come back and play again. You know, come back to the W League." He goes, "Tomorrow morning training, 5:30, Homebush." And I sort of looked at him and I'm like, "Mate, 5:30? Are you serious? I'm coming at 5:30." And I was not nowhere near as fit as what I was. I was probably a little bit overweight, unfit, you know, hadn't really played at that level. It'd been over nearly 3 years, you know. But funny enough, the night before, I packed my bag and I walked into the change room at 5:30 the next morning. I seen a lot of friends and a lot of girls that I played with along the years. And it was that day, I remember it clearly. I was so tired. I felt like I was going to vomit after the session. I hadn't trained that hard in years. And it was from there that I got back involved in football, and I signed for Sydney FC that season. And by the end of the season, I was back in the Matildas camp. And lucky enough, because I never got to actually cap properly for Australia, and it was only because I came back that I actually got a proper cap, because back in those days there was not many internationals playing. So to come back, play W League, get back into the Matildas, and actually get an official cap was something that, it's very special, and I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to do that. And now, I've forged a career in coaching, and if I didn't come back that day and I didn't turn up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm not sure that we'd be having this conversation today.
It's a wonderful story. All credit to you. Kath, do you think you were more resilient when you came back into it?
Oh, 100%. I had a much clearer mind as well. I had a lot better life to football balance. I think having that time away from the game really taught me a lot about me as a person, and about what football really, really needs. And that's something that I try to really instill in the players, about having balance with football, because you can't be, 200% invested in football, because I truly believe, psychologically as well, you need that out, whether it be with your family or your friends. And I feel when you have that balance as a player, you're a lot clearer, you're a lot happier. And when I came back in the second time around, my vision on how to be a footballer and what I wanted out of the game was a lot different. It's amazing when you actually step back and you look from the outside, how different it actually is. And we're very lucky these days as well. There's a lot of support, within mental health, dietitians, nutritionists, strength and conditioning. There's so many different parts of help that you've got there now when you are a professional footballer, which is fantastic.
Yeah. How important do you think it is for coaches to be resilient?
Oh, super important, because not everything's going to go your way, and it's never going to be a straight road where you're going to go from A to B. It's so many different roadblocks, so many barriers, so many hoops you need to jump through. I think it's really important as a coach and as a head coach that you're the one that needs to stand strong for the group. You're the leader of the pack. You're the top. They need to look to you for support, and you need to be their rock. And I think that's the most important role as a head coach. They need to know that you're going through all those barriers for them, and they know that you're pushing, that you're working as hard as you can. And it's not always going to be peaches. You're not always going to be winning. And I understand that as a coach, because it's not always going to be, you're just going to win a championship just like that. It takes hard work, and being resilient is a big one.
Yeah. Do you think that it seems in general discussions that there's an acceptance that maybe young people aren't as resilient as maybe they used to be? And do you think that's something that is that a teach by example thing, or do you think that's something that we can work with players on?
No, I definitely think you can work with players on that. I think being resilient is something that gets instilled in you. Whether you're a younger player or a younger person, I think a lot of it comes from your home life. A lot of your learnings come, from your family and your parents, and how they have brought you up, but also as coaches in other environments, whether it be in youth environments or younger environments, it's our job to teach kids how to be resilient. It's very difficult these days, and I know the way of of coaching and teaching in terms of, winning. Is our winning culture still there? Is our are we a lot softer on players or on kids in these environments? There's so many questions around that space, and things have changed a lot. But I think it's really important that, having discipline within your environment and teaching your kids or your players to be resilient is the job of the leader of the group.
Yeah, no, I like that. So what have been some of your most enjoyable moments so far as a coach?
I think for me, how much we've evolved in the W League space. If I go back to my first year as an assistant, and to me last year as an assistant, how much the game has grown, how much more professional it's coming, how lucky we are to have, or I can say in my environment, the resources that we have as a club. If we go back when I was playing W League, over 10 years ago, wow, what a long way we've come. I remember back in my Sydney FC days, we had times when we would be training at a park and we'd have to all get our headlights on so we could train that extra half an hour to get a bit of light. So when I tell some of these young girls these stories, they're like, what, really? Oh, no way. I'm like, yeah, that's what we had to do. We had to put our headlights on in the car to get a training session out. The coach wasn't just our coach. He was our, he'd strap our ankles. You'd diagnose our rolled ankles, our knees, and there was just it was tough back in those days, and to see how far we have come as a game in the women's game is unbelievable for me. But I think not last season, the season before, getting the monkey off our back with the W League and the Western Sydney Wanderers and making the top four, that was a huge achievement for us as a group. I think it was something that's been a long time coming for myself. It's been something I'm really, really proud of, and something that I want it to become the norm. I want it to be normal that the Western Sydney Wanderers make the top four and that are in the semis every year. That's got to be part of the culture, to have that winning mentality, to say, I play for the Western Sydney Wanderers and I want to win it.
Yeah. How important is the Future Wander women's program and the academy for you?
Oh, it's huge. To give, I think it's 35 girls the opportunity to be affiliated with the brand. I think that's something that's going to be huge. Who knows, in 1 to 5 years' time, if I'm having these conversations with players and asking them to sign with the Western Sydney Wanderers, I want them to pick us because they have that sense of belonging to the club. And I think starting it off at a young age, I think is absolutely important to have that, because I truly, truly believe, you need to be, feel strongly about the club that you play for. And when you have that extra passion for the club, girls are going to want to stay long term with you. Girls are going to want to be on that journey with you, and they're going to believe in what our vision is as a club, and not just in the girls' part, but in the club in general. When they think Wanderers, I want them to think, we want to be successful, whether it be A League, W League, NYL, whatever part of the club that you're part of, because coaches come and go, staff come and go, but the club will always remain. And I think it's really important that we're giving girls that opportunity, and we're also giving girls the opportunity that it doesn't come down to whether mum or dad can afford it as well, which I think is fantastic. Our foundation, which has funded the program, it's been absolutely phenomenal part of the growth of young kids in Western Sydney, and to give those kids the opportunity and not have to pay, especially in these days. It's becoming very expensive to play football. So to get that extra coaching and be in that environment where they get to, get a Wanderers strip, and they get to train at our facilities. They get to go in the gym where the A League and the W League players, train, and they get to train on the same pitches. It's just phenomenal to give them that sense of, that belonging with the club.
Congratulations to you all on that. Sounds fantastic. On the downhill run here right now, what does success look like for you?
Success for me would have to be building something special at the club, as a head coach. Yes, of course, we want to win the W League. That's success. But one day when my time does come up here and I can't be the head coach forever, I want to make sure that I've left a legacy and something that, women's football can be proud of, the club can be proud of. I think it's really important that we build something special for the women's side of things. And I think it's important that we have been growing as a club. Is it the best that it can be? No, it's not. It can always be better. And we want to strive to be, one day, my ultimate goal is to have full-time professionals as players, coaches, staff. That would be my ultimate goal for the women's space.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot as well. All right. What are some of the valuable lessons you've learned on your journey so far?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think the most important thing is just always be a good person. I think no matter what, you're always going to have those disagreements, whether it be as a coach or player, but always stay true to yourself, always stay true to your values, and always be a good person. Because I think, in football, there is so many different opinions. We've all got a different opinion on how we see the game or how we see a player. But I think it's just always important that you stay honest and you stay true to yourself and true to your beliefs. I think the biggest thing for me is just to keep being me and keep being the person that I am.
I like that too. All right. Last one.
Do you say that to everybody?
No, not everyone. So if there's one piece of coaching wisdom you could pass on to a young coach at the beginning of the journey, someone on the middle of the journey, someone at their end of the journey, what's one piece of coaching wisdom you'd like to leave us with today?
I think the main one would be don't give up, because it is a tough journey. I've been going through it, and I know sometimes it becomes difficult. And, I went down that path as a player where I gave up and I decided to not continue to play and go through those tough times. And I think as a coach, it's don't give up, keep working hard, because you will find a pathway somewhere, someplace in Australia or maybe overseas. Who knows where it is? But if you're passionate about what you're doing, do not give up. Keep fighting. Keep fighting for coaches and keep working hard.
I love that. That's terrific. What a fantastic place to leave it today. Thank you, Kath Cannuli, and we wish you every success. Can't wait for the next W League season to roll around and see that the great things that you do in a great team. Please pass on my best wishes to John Satsimus and Crookie, two old mates. And we wish you the very, very best, Kath. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Gary.
You've been listening to Kath Cannuli and the Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media, the podcast professionals. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then please go to footballcoachesauss.org.au, renew your membership, buy a membership, just read a little bit and get yourself some football education. You have a great day.